Building an email list for your podcast. It is vital. It's why I work with the guys at Aweber on my email list. You should check it out, markasquith.com/Aweber. But it's not as easy as it sounds. I believe if you're not building an email list for your podcast, that you are missing a trick. Why? Well, put frankly, you have to own your data. So think about yourself as a podcaster. You start a podcast, you create a podcast, and what happens is you generate some listens, you get some downloads, you ultimately build a fan base, which is very, very loyal to you. And in particular, because you're a podcaster, you do have that loyalty with your listeners that very many other creators don't have, because it's such an intimate medium. Of course, you get that to a degree with video, but arguably podcasting is much more intimate because, well, you're piping into my ear. It's very, very intimate. And thus that connection with the podcast host for a listener becomes that much stronger. This puts you as a podcaster in a really, really good position. It means that you can potentially make money in so many different ways. And an email list needs to be at the center of that. Now, so many podcasters are looking at ways of building the community right now. If you think about all of the new startups that are cropping up in the space, and we talk very much about that in our deep dive community Q&A sessions, because there are so many community apps popping up. The ability to build a podcast community on Facebook or Discord or any one of the number of social podcasting apps out there. That's all well and good. But the problem with that is you don't own that data. You can't do anything really with that data apart from build a sense of community. One of the main things that we talk about in our big podcast monetization tutorial, which is captivate.fm/money, is the ability to utilize the relationship that you have with your audience in such a way that it continues to entertain and educate and add value to their lives, and it continues to keep that trust that you've built as a podcaster, but it allows you to generate revenue through the listenership that you build. And believe me, the only way to do that is to own your data. It's to own your data. Now, what am I talking about when I say own your data? Well, downloads are great. They are data points that every podcaster should really care about. However, they are not the only data point that podcasters should care about, because there's no real identifiable information in there. You can't tell who's listening to your podcast, okay? So what we have to do is find a way of shifting people over into something that we can identify and that we can use to market our wares, whether that is merchandise, whether it's our Patreon, whether it is our services, our consulting, whether it's our products. It doesn't matter what it is. We need a way of being able to directly communicate with people and measure whether or not they take action with the things that we send them. And believe me, email marketing is the only way to do that. So should you build an email list for your podcast? Yes, it is a resounding yes. You should be building an email list for your podcast. Now, the worry that so many podcasters have is because we're creators, and we talked about this when we talked about monetization. Like, it feels a little bit, I don't want to say it, but it feels a little bit slimy. It feels a bit sleazy, doesn't it? It feels a bit salesy because we're creators. We want to create things. We don't get into this to be business people or to have to mess around with funnels and marketing and all that kind of boring stuff. That's not why we got into podcasting. Unless we're a business podcaster and we're using podcasting as a marketing channel, we already know about this stuff if that's how we're using podcasting. But you, the podcaster, the creator that got into podcasting because you love the audio medium, because you love the thing that you talk about, potentially selling something, it feels a little sleazy, but I'm here to tell you it's not. And we talk about this, like I said, in our big tutorial on podcast monetization, captivate.fm/money. It's not selling out. In fact, I want you to remember this. So very many of your listeners want more from you. They tune into you because it is you. They want more of you. And if they can get more of you by acting on the things that you ask them to act on, whether that is listener support via Patreon or Supercast, whether that is buying something from you in the form of merchandise, whether that is helping you to sponsor your show, whatever that is, your listeners want more from you because they choose to tune in to you. Even if you are an interview show, they are choosing to tune in to you, okay? It's you that they're there for. The guest they could get elsewhere on other podcasts. It's you they are coming from, and your unique take on how you interview that guest. And likewise, if you're a solo show, they're coming for you. They want to listen to what you have to say. So don't be nervous about asking for an email address. Just make sure you're giving something in return, whether that's early access to episodes, even a very simple personally curated newsletter, whether it is something along the lines of giving people extra content or just a way to access you by replying to your emails. It works. It's not slimy. It's not sleazy. Don't worry. I assure you, your listeners, as long as you do this in a very open and transparent way, they will welcome the building of your email list. So yes, please start to build an email list for your show and watch how that helps you on the path to podcast monetization.